And I remember nights, 2, 3 o'clock, coming all on my own on the subways, thinking, what will he lead me to? Not knowing consciously of Baba yet. When this Hungarian lady phoned to me one day, I'd been only a few weeks in New York. It was also new and strange to me. Telling me, Carrie, there's a master from India coming. His name is Meher Baba. So I said in my heart, who knows? He may be the one I've been looking for ages on end. So she gave me the address. I said, where can I get the material of him, of his teachings? That was a few months before Baba was supposed to come to the States. For a few days to New York and then on to Myrtle Beach. We were supposed to stay only for a few weeks, actually, in New York. But when I heard that Baba was coming, I told my husband, I'm not going back until I was going to meet Baba. But he had to go back for his work and also wasn't interested and ready to meet Baba. So immediately I contacted Winterfeld's. I remember the first meeting we sat there. And they told me something of Baba. I went to their bookcase. I chose immediately the discourses. The moment I looked at the discourses, I realized this had been the end of my search. This was my master. And then I had worked with mentally sick, especially young girls in a special clinic. Beautiful young girls languishing there around on psychoanalysis, not getting better. I used to tell them about the love. Only love for God could help them. But they did become better. That was before I had known of Baba, but now having Baba material with me, I gave them also some Baba material. There was one girl, she'd been shut in the inner department because she was a N.Y.C. And there was no hope to bring her to Baba. We were given just 2 minutes among the 10 million citizens. There were about 1,000 Americans who were allowed to see Baba for a few minutes. And I, as the only one from Israel, was also allowed for 2 minutes to see Baba. And they started to ask, as soon as they saw me, the Americans, from all over the States, how is it that Carrie from Israel, that very minute when Meher Baba came to the States, she was brought over from Jerusalem to be in Baba's presence. So Mani answered in the name of Baba, the way of the Lord are wonderful. If the Lord of Lords decides that the soul is ready to be awakened more consciously towards the highest, he has his own means of bringing that soul towards him. So Baba had been sitting, he'd seen me sitting for years on end in utter spiritual isolation. He had decided the time had come, in his grace, to be brought over. And in the end, I came to the airport, and I had a chance among those many Baba lovers, the American ones, expecting Baba to... I haven't got all the English words because I'm not English born. I haven't used all the English language to squeeze in among the journalists who were expecting Baba descending from the plane. So I squeezed in and I saw Baba just descending. And I saw Baba waving to me, and I waving to Baba is an ancient connection. I just knew I'd come home into Baba's heart. The only home we have on this earth, at least with me. The second one would be on this planet Earth, India, with Baba's Mandalis. But real home only in the Eternal One's heart. So, Baba went through, and on the outside, people were waiting to welcome him. I stood with Adele Wolkin, also being of Jewish origin. She felt herself obliged to introduce me to Baba. Of course, Baba had already seen me, and Baba didn't need any introductions, actually. But it was done like that, and Baba just smiled and said first hello to Adele, who is just his angel, he always called him. called her his angel. She was extremely devoted to Baba. And then Baba immediately took me on his heart. There had never been any strangeness or anything. So we went off on cars towards that hotel. I'd forgotten, was it Desmondo Hotel, where we stayed with Baba several days in New York City. Then I was allowed, I had a telephone call. That girl, which had been so desperately, mentally limited, she was allowed to come out through Baba's influence before she'd been shut in. And I took her along with Baba when my 2 minutes were towards Baba. And Baba immediately, when he saw me, he put his hands on my head and he gave me his breast. Then he noticed our anxiety regarding that girl. So he gestured that she was all right. And she really the same day, she left the clinic and never went back again. But she just laughed, she wasn't ready. Her husband had come too. We had been listening to Baba discourses, thousands of people sitting on the floor. You couldn't hear a fly coughing. And I tried, remembering Christ's words, to become just like a child, trying to throw off my cut-off head, as I used to call it, trying to forget what I'd ever learned in all these universities, just to try to become like a child and imbibe Baba's words. So this alone was really just undescribable as anything connected with the Buddha, ancient avatar, is the case.
So it's as though the intellectual approach just opened all the doors.
Well, it depends.
Served its purpose. Yes.
I could never have done it intellectually, because the intellect, I believe, stands in our way of perceiving and experiencing anything connected with higher planes. So I've had the experience now with this Zen Buddhist priest I met in the nature place. I was there.
In England?
In England now,
yes.
Before I came here, because Baba wanted me to be first there, it seems.
Yes.
To imbibe some Zen Buddhism and tell them about Baba there. We exchanged. And this man told me, when I gave him as a present to the God-man of Charles Purdom, I have to do it via the intellect. Well, since he told me that, I let him be. I'd given him before the discourses. I thought he could do it as I did, but he couldn't. So it is also intellectual, but I believe it is another organ, I tell my people always who come and ask questions, in which you can perceive the ancient teachings. Actually, you see, seeds have been sown in the course of years when Baba sent me back. It happened like this, that Baba invited me by plane, my first plane trip in this life, to Myrtle Beach. I hadn't known that I was going to stay, that I was going to meet Baba. I wasn't allowed to stay for very long, I wasn't allowed to work. And there wasn't much money left. My husband had left. He'd been doing some writing in a Hebrew newspaper and left me that money, which he got. He helped me. And Baba already in my heart a terrific anxiety to leave Baba again. They were all going over to Myrtle Beach and on to San Francisco and to Australia. But I was just despaired. I felt I couldn't separate. So suddenly a strange lady comes up to me from one of the air offices and says, Mrs. Ben Shammai, you are invited by Mayor Baba to participate in the flight to Myrtle Beach. I just didn't know what I was saying. Just sat down and cried. It had just been Baba inspiring all those people there to invite me. I saw Adele working, doing desperately, quickly bills, because Baba demanded to be real in this life. This was a great thing I could always tell people, that true mysticism is a true reality in this life. Not the people sitting with long eyelashes, in the mountain, meditating on God, But through daily life, trying to do our daily duty, we shall find our way in general. Of course, the danger was great, I remember in former times. I forever had, even today, great difficulties in keeping down. But Baba, being this master also of this plane, has always helped me to become more and more realistic in this life.
Yes.
But if I would be myself, I would always remain on other planes. But Baba hasn't given us time to think of ourselves. And this is a beautiful thing, that Baba keeps us forever busy. Now, when Baba was in, Baba took us then over in his plane. It is quite impossible to describe what has been happening in the plane. There would be so many details. It will be written up. When the esoteric history of Israel's awakening will be written, what has been happening. It was impossible to tell it all in details. So when we came down to Myrtle Beach, people had not known that I and a number of other people were coming to stay in Myrtle Beach. So we were first outside on the seaside. I was with a blind Harry Kenmore.
Yes.
And I was quite despaired. I was coming to Baba. I shouldn't be in his center, in his presence. So Baba had us come in for a meeting. We were sitting in the reception place. I've forgotten how you call that. The cottage there, the special one. Sitting around Baba. And Baba was calling out names, but he didn't call out my name. But he must have read my despair. I just thought my heart was breaking. I was going back outside. I wouldn't mind to have slept on the floor. So Baba called in Kitty. Said, Kitty, was this? Why should these people be outside? You just have to make room. So Kitty said, Carrie is going to sleep in that reception cottage. So my function had been, the first thing in the morning at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, to clean Baba's reception room. Even his seat, anything which had been touched by him. So Baba was the only one out. I used to clean everything, then go out into the woods near the bridge. Baba had his house on the other side of the bridge.